All right, hello, Phillies fans. Welcome to Believe in Phillies, episode 25 here for you today. We're going to be talking about the Mariners, talking about the Dodgers, and previewing the Diamondbacks, among some other things. But Mike, coming off the last two series, I know you're out in LA. You got to go to a few of those games. What did you see recently from the Phils?
Yeah, it was great for them to take that series. They've won 3 out of 4. They really need it. They've been kind of, in that grind mode, kind of going with their best lineup over the last 3, 4 games. They still have guys struggling in their lineup. It's just they haven't hit on all cylinders yet. Thank God we have Schwarber that is just raking right now.
Yeah.
It was great to get. I went to Monday's game with my kids. I went with the whole family last night. Last night was a special game. Wow, that was awesome. Got to see Big Schwarber's second home run from the press box. Kevin Stalker invited myself and my 3 boys up, so that was great for my boys to be in the press box and watch a really cool inning with Roberts getting thrown out. Big inning for the Phillies. Schwarber just hitting that bomb, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Schwarber 3 home runs last night, 5 over the last 2 series. He is raking right now. We'll definitely be talking about him. But yeah, let me just go through the Mariners and Dodgers series real quick, and then we'll get into who's hot, who's not. For the Mariners, game one, Phillies got blown out 10-2. That was the game Brian Wu pitched for the Mariners. He looked fantastic. He's been so good for them recently. And Phillips got rocked. They didn't really look great in that game. And then game two in Seattle was the 10-inning loss. Only 2 extra base hits for the Phillies in that game. Kirkering and Allard got off to a good start, but then Hoffman got beat up a little bit, so they ended up losing that one. And then in game 3 in Seattle, Schwarb, Harper, Bohm, and Stott all homered. Wheeler tossed a gem. We'll talk about him in a little bit. So good to get the win in the final game of that series. And then they went to LA. Game 1 was the 5-3 loss. Casti had the triple. Nola was okay, but the Dodgers bullpen was able to kind of carry them to the finish. Then game 2 in LA, a 6-2 victory. Sosa and Schwarber homered. Sanchez threw a pretty good game. The bullpen was good. And then last night, obviously, the Schwarber 3-run homer, 7 RBI day for him. The bullpen looked good after Phillips kind of didn't have his best stuff, but they ended up coming out with the win. But transitioning into who's hot, who's not, let's start with Kyle Schwarber. Last 12 games, he has 8 home runs and 16 RBIs and 14 walks. So that's obviously some good numbers. But even since injury, that's a much longer stretch. Since he's come back from that injury, he's hitting .299 with 10 home runs and 23 walks, Mike. 23 walks since he's come back from injury. I think that's like 23 walks in 25 games or something like that. This guy is raking right now. You've got 5 guys in the Phillies lineup that are really struggling since the All-Star break, since they've come back from injuries. So having a guy like Schwarber at the top of the order is so key. But Mike, I know we can talk about Kyle Schwarber all day long, but what have you just been seeing from him recently? Because he's been punishing the ball.
Yeah, and in the last series we did, we were talking about how great of an eye he has. I mean, like a cat. It's just unbelievable the pitches that he takes. We were talking about that. He's just cut down on his strikeouts this year. He's hitting for an average for him. I mean, we're used to seeing Schwarber hit 200 and obviously hit his 50 home runs, but this year he's become a true hitter. He's getting a lot of base hits, line drives up the middle, and the home runs. He's just wow, at the top of the lineup, getting on base like he is. That danger. I mean, how many home runs does he hit in the first inning? He's so dangerous, early in the game. And I mean, he's looked great really the whole year. So it's no surprise to me. He looks so relaxed at the plate. He's just the table setter for the Phillies.
Yeah, and you talked about that power last year. He hit 197 with like 47 home runs. This year, he's hitting 261 right now. That's 64 points higher, and he's still on pace for 38 to 40 home runs. So those are big still power numbers from him. And I mean, watching him play this season, I think this has definitely been his best year with the Phillies. I've loved watching him. It's been a real pleasure. So definitely kudos to Kyle Schwarber. Let's talk about another guy in the lineup that's hitting. There's not a lot of guys that are hitting super well. Alec Boehm's been pretty good recently, but the guy that's been the model of consistency really is Nick Castellanos. Obviously been hit really well in July, and then so far in August, 6 games. He's got 7 hits, a double, and a triple. Only 3 strikeouts for him, so he's just looked a lot more patient. He's seeing the ball better. He's hitting the ball to all fields. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Casty, Mike. I know we've been talking very highly of him in the last few weeks. So, I mean, what else can you say about Nick Castellanos?
He's been doing it for a while, really the last month and a half or 2. I mean, he's really turned it on from the beginning of the season. He's hitting a lot of doubles. He's really, power numbers are way up from the obviously early in the season. It's just, I think he should move up in the lineup. I mean, I know Topper loves the righty lefty combo after Bohm, and it's just, I mean, with JT struggling a little bit, you got Marsh struggling. You have really the bottom lineup has just been struggling. Castellanos has to be right behind Bohm. I love to see him move up in the lineup. He is that type of hitter. He has a career numbers. It's just I don't see him regressing right now. He's hitting a lot of fastballs. He's on time with the fastball, where before early in the season he was not. He was really swinging a lot of bad off speed, and he looks great right now. It just I like to see him higher.
Yeah. I've loved what I've seen from Casty recently. He's been hitting the ball well, like we've talked about. But let's transition to the pitching side. Overall, the pitching hasn't been bad over the last few weeks, all things considered. I mean, there's definitely been some rocky starts and kind of the lack of consistency in the rotation, and that obviously due to a lot of guys hurt. There's no Ranger Suarez right now. There's no Taijuan Walker. There's no Spencer Turnbull, although they're getting the first two of those guys back very soon. But Zach Wheeler had a great outing in Seattle. We'll see him game 2 in Arizona. But in that game in Seattle, he threw 8 scoreless, 3 base runners allowed. That was 2 hits and 1 walk, and struck out 9. So really a masterclass from Wheeler in Seattle. He looked great. What did you see from him?
Yeah, it's just Wheeler had, he needed that good start. I mean, they were talking about his life on his fastball just wasn't there. He wasn't getting as many swings and misses, but he had a great start his last outing. Wheeler's your ace. I mean, you need him to show up every 5 days, especially through this struggle that the Phillies been in the last few weeks. So it'll be nice to get him back that second game in Arizona. He was like the Kurt Schilling when I played. You needed that win. You needed to count on him when the team was struggling. And they have a tough series in Arizona, so
Yeah.
the first game's going to be tough for them to come up with the W. I know, with Wheeler throwing that second game, if they can get that first game as a W, that's a huge part of their road trip. Like I said, the Dodgers series was a huge part of the road trip. Now they have a tough 4 games. It's nice to have Wheeler back in that second game.
We saw Colby Allard, though, pitch in relief after Ryan Kerkering opened up one of those games in Seattle. And Colby Allard, 4 innings of 1-run ball. You like to see that from him, so hopefully he'll have a better second start of his Phillies career tonight. But one more guy I want to highlight out of the bullpen. Obviously, Carlos Estevez has been good since coming over. But there's another guy that I've really been impressed with. Kind of went under the radar as a move, but Tanner Banks, through his first 3 outings as a Philly, has looked really good. The last 2 series, he's given them 2 inning performances. So having a guy that can go that extra inning is always good. But 5 innings of only 2 base runners and 1 run allowed for Mr. Banks to start off his Phillies career. I've liked what I've seen from him.
Yeah, that's great. He was a replacement for Soto, and coming back, a control guy, a left-hander, great on left-handers, great stats. He's just somebody that we needed coming out of the bullpen that can throw strikes. You're not worried about him walking guys. So I love what I see also.
Yeah, I mean, and for the Orioles too, I don't know if you followed the kind of the fallout of the trade so far, but Gregory Soto has not had a good start to his Orioles career. He's in 3 outings gotten 4 outs and allowed 9 hits and 8 runs. So a 54 Orioles ERA for him is not where I think he hopes to get started. And they DFA'd Christian Pache pretty much right after the trade. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one turns out for the Phillies when we look at it a few years down the road. I mean, they had 2 swaps with the Orioles. Getting Austin Hayes has been good so far. Obviously, he just had the hamstring injury running to first last night that we'll talk about. But yeah, you love to get Tanner Banks from the White Sox. He's been really good. Estevez has been good. So hopefully we're continuing to see kind of these strong outings from the new players the Phillies got. But let's transition a little bit to who hasn't been hitting recently. And the first guy I want to mention is JT Realmuto. So he was out for an injury, obviously, just about a month, and then came back. Since he's come back, though, only 8 hits. He's hitting 178 with a 452 OPS. And during that stretch, he does not have an extra base hit. So JT really just hasn't looked as confident, hasn't looked as strong at the plate, hasn't looked as kind of like a feared hitter that JT can be. So what have you been seeing from JT, Mike, recently? And how can he maybe adjust his approach at the plate to get back to playing more like JT Realmuto should?
Yeah, JT relies a lot on timing. He has that big leg kick, and I've seen him for the last few years when he is off, he is just late with his timing. He's been late on fastballs, especially high fastballs up in the zone. I liked what I saw in the Dodger series, though. He hit some hard balls, hit some line drives to center field. They were just caught. He hit like a hard ground ball, I think, last night to third base. It just seems like he's kind of getting back to his timing a little bit, which I like to see, where he's not striking out as much. When he's off, he's striking out a lot. JT does strike out a little bit too much, and you can tell when his timing is off with that leg kick, and he's not kind of like Castellanos was early in the year. He was kind of getting to his front foot. His timing with the leg kick was off, and he wasn't hitting fastballs. And that's, JT's strength is on the fastball. So, he's going to get a lot of off speed. He's going to always probably struggle a little bit with off speed, just like Castellanos will probably throughout his whole career. But you just got to hit that fastball and not be late on it. And it just looks like he's just a tad late. Same with Harper. Harper's kind of been in the same situation where he's kind of hitting the breaking ball. He's on time for the breaking ball, but he's just late on fastballs. So I actually like what I saw from Harper too in the Dodgers series. He hit a lot of balls hard just for
Mhm.
outs. So maybe they are getting close to where they need to be.
Yeah, and let's talk about Bryce Harper because obviously he had the crazy cold stretch the last time we talked about him, and he had definitely a better series in Seattle and Los Angeles, but he's still striking out a ton, Mike. He's striking out well over 25%, almost 30% since coming back from injury, and also since coming back from injury, he's hitting 183 with a 642 OPS. Those are not numbers you're expecting from Bryce Harper. Obviously, he didn't get off to quite the hottest start of the year, but then for most of the season, we've been talking about how unbelievable Bryce Harper has been, but that's not been the case since he's come back from injury. Almost 100 plate appearances, and we just haven't seen the true MVP caliber Bryce Harper. So hopefully that's something that shifts soon. I mean, he's Bryce Harper, so you can't really be too worried about him. But what have you been seeing from him, just to talk a little bit more, expand on what you just said, and how he can fix that approach as quick as he can to get this Phillies lineup back to where they should be?
Yeah, he's just swinging through too many fastballs that he would normally hit, especially fastballs that are up in the zone. He's just long with his swing a little bit and just late. He's just late on the high heat, and he's just missing too many hard fastballs over the plate. And when you're late on the fastball, you try to catch up, then you're early on the breaking ball. It's kind of it's two-headed sword, and when you're kind of, you want to catch up to the fastball, and then you get the off speed and you're not even hitting that. So in Seattle, he had a couple off speed pitches. He hit the home run to right field. He had those 3 hits with the homer, but those were on off speed pitches. They weren't really fastballs that he was getting to. So I did see some balls, like I said, hit hard in LA. So hopefully he is getting close.
Yeah, I think he definitely will be back soon. It's Bryce Harper, like we've talked about. He's one of the best there is, so I'm not too worried about him. But the thing that does worry me a little bit is we talked about Harper, we talked about JT. Okay, if there's two guys struggling in the lineup, that's fine. But it's not just those two right now. We have Brandon Marsh since the All-Star break. He's hitting 164. Trey Turner, his last 11 games, he's hitting 143. I think Bryson Stott only had like 2 hits over the last 2 series. So right now there's Harper, Marsh, JT, Turner, and Stotty. All really are not playing their best baseball, and it's showing. There's a lot of games where the Phillies are not driving in the amount of runs that they usually do. They're leaving guys on base. They're struggling with that a little bit. So do you have more optimism coming into Arizona? Obviously, their pitching staff not as strong as either Seattle or Los Angeles, not as deep either. Do you have a lot more confidence coming into this series that the Phillies offense will bounce back?
I do. I think, like I said, I think JT and Harper are getting closer. They have better at bats. They're hitting balls hard, maybe for outs. But Trey Turner, I've seen him. We've both seen him for a couple years now. We've seen him struggle at times, rarely,
Yeah.
but he can struggle, and he pulls off the ball way too much. He's out in front. He's a very quick-handed hitter. He's got very quick hands. So when he does struggle, he is susceptible to the slider, the off speed away, anything away. He's just pulling off way too many pitches. And we've seen him come out of it. We've seen him come out of it many times. So he knows what he needs to work on. Obviously, he's better at hitting the ball to right center. He's probably trying to stay on the ball a little bit more. I know Trey's going to be out of it shortly. He's never been a hitter that's really stayed in a slump too long. So he knows what he's doing. And as far as Harper, like I said, he's close. JT just, from the injury, I think he just needs more bats. He's close. So if we can get the whole lineup going with Castellanos now hitting, with Schwarber really raking, maybe get Stott, back shortening his swing a little bit. And, I think they're, as a team, once they come together, they're going to be really deadly.
I think so too. And I think this Arizona series is a perfect opportunity for them to get out of this little offensive funk that about half the lineup's going through. So hopefully we'll see that. But let's talk a little bit about some roster turnover possibly, because with this Phillies lineup slump, there's definitely some moves that could be made. We'll mention quick that Austin Hayes last night left the game with a left hamstring injury. While he was running to first, Rob Thompson said he felt a grab, but he wasn't really sure what it was going to be. They're evaluating him today. A lot of sources are saying they're expecting him to need a stint on the IL, whether it's 10 days, 15 days, a little bit longer. We shall see. But if Austin Hayes is to go down, which seems like the most likely probability right now, the Phillies need to think of who's the bat in AAA right now that's going to have the biggest impact and try to really shake this lineup up, because they've done that before. There were times where maybe they weren't playing the best offense and Cody Clemens came up and gave them some sparks, or David Dahl back in the spring, he would give them some sparks. So it's interesting to see who they go with. There's a few options, I think. If Hayes is to go down, it's good to have that fourth true outfielder. I know Weston Wilson can play the outfield, but you like to have another guy that truly is an outfielder. I mean, Weston Wilson's kind of a super utility guy. You can play him anywhere, but a guy like Cal Stevenson right now, he used to be on the A's. He's hitting really well in AAA for the Phillies. He's batting .305 with 27 steals. And then also Scott Kingery and Buddy Kennedy, two guys the Phillies know. Obviously, Scott Kingery played a few seasons in Philadelphia. They're both having good years at AAA. We'll look out for a move coming in the next few days if Hayes is to be sent down. And then another thing I want to mention is kind of the catching situation right now. We talked a little bit before the episode about this, but we're not seeing the best offensive production from JT Realmuto right now. Obviously, since his injury, we talked about his numbers. And Garrett Stubbs this year, I mean, you're not expecting a ton of offense from Garrett Stubbs, but a 188 batting average, a 509 OPS. But maybe, you hope to see a little bit more from Stubbs, even on the offensive side. So is it maybe time to start thinking about when Rafael Marchand comes back? Garrett Stubbs does still have a minor league option, so the Phillies would not need to cut him. I don't think that's something they would do. Because they love having him in the clubhouse. He's a good veteran guy. But when they were the two catchers, when it was Stubbs and Marchand in JT's absence, Marchand outplayed Stubbs offensively and defensively. And not just by little margins, by a lot. He was hitting the ball almost at 300. He doesn't have a ton of pop, but he can give you that big hit when you need it. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on kind of the Phillies catching situation right now? And do you think maybe bringing Marchand back could add another spark to this lineup?
Yeah, with Marchand, I mean, he had limited time up with the Phillies. He was excellent behind the plate, very soft glove, incredible throwing arm, and he hit, which I don't know what his, really his career numbers in the minor leagues. I'm curious to know how he's been doing since he's been sent down as far as on the offensive side. We know he can catch. We know he's really good defensively. JT is getting more days off now just because of his injury. So it doesn't seem like JT's catching 14 games in a row. It seems like he's catching 2 or 3. He's getting an off day. They want him to be ready for the playoffs when they get there. They want him to be healthy. So I do see, a little bit less time for JT, some off days, and that Stubbs is struggling offensively. So Stubbs is having a tough time at the plate offensively, and that's, kind of like a situation where the Phillies are probably looking at, how Marchand's doing in AAA, how he's hitting, with that option to play every third day, every fourth day, giving that JT that rest until the playoffs. And it's just, yeah, that's a tough situation. Stubbs has been so, great bench player, great team player, and I hate to see it happen, but I think it's definitely in the back of the Phillies' minds and Dombrowski's mind. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what route they go with that, because you want to keep Stubbs on the squad because he's such a good clubhouse guy, but you also want to get more production out of your lineup. So it's interesting to think about, and I'm sure, like you said, it's in the back of Dombrowski's mind. So let's kind of move on to the injury report here. We talked about Austin Hayes a good amount already, but the two other guys that are coming back soon are Taijuan Walker and Ranger Suarez, which I'm sure the Phillies are happy about to have some more arms in that rotation. So we see a little bit less maybe of Tyler Phillips, who's been struggling, a little bit less of Colby Allard, who's not as proven. But Taiwan, he'll be pitching game one in Miami as of right now. He had a rehab start rained out the other day, but he's looked better in bullpens sessions as far as I've been reading. Still coming back from that right index finger injury, trying to get a good command of his splitter. So I'm excited to have him back. It'll be interesting to see what role they use him in. And with Ranger Suarez, they're also going to have him come back in the Miami series. He's throwing a 2-inning simulated game tonight. So we'll see how that goes, and that'll definitely determine what game he pitches in Miami and how many more days they give him. But Mike, how much of an impact do you think it'll have to have these veterans come back and rejoin the rotation?
Yeah, we'll see when Walker comes back. What kind of stuff, if he can get through some innings, quality innings. Phillips has really struggled lately with his control. We talked about he had really great control his first couple starts,
Yeah.
had that 9-inning game, which was fantastic. But really, his last two starts, he's just missing, on a lot of pitches. I mean, his slider's been kind of missing on some 3-2 counts, and it just I think the Phillies are, happy to get Taiwan back at this point, and it's much needed. So we'll see if that split finger is a lot better than it was before. He's living it up in the zone, really getting hit hard. Was his out pitch last year. We'll see if that's back. His velocities. I think his velocity will be kind of around the same, around 92 miles an hour. But his velocity and his split was kind of like the key for him. So maybe that rest really helped, and we'll see his next couple starts. So it's much needed in that fifth spot.
Yeah. And so let's wrap up here talking about this upcoming Diamondback series. We won't see Suarez or Taiwan in there, but we will see Colby Allard in game one tonight. That'll be his second start as a Philly. He'll be taking on Jordan Montgomery, who obviously World Series champion with the Rangers last year, but having an atrocious year this year. A 6.37 ERA, 1.661 WHIP. Both those are very bad numbers, and he's only striking out 6 per 9. So I'm expecting the Phillies to definitely hit him a little bit. Game two will be Zach Wheeler versus Ryan Nelson. Another guy having an okay but not great year for the Diamondbacks, a 4.65 ERA for them. Game three, it's going to be Aaron Nola versus the D-backs ace, Zach Gallen. He's got a 3.75 ERA, which is the best among their starters, and he's 9-5 on the season. And then game four, it's Chris Sanchez versus a to-be-determined Diamondback starter. But this Diamondbacks team really is not a pitch-first team. They're an offensive-first team. They have a 4.50 team ERA on the season. They've got a pretty solid bullpen. They just got A.J. Puck from the Athletics, who's been red hot recently. They have Justin Martinez. He's pretty good. Paul Sewald, Kevin Ginkel, Ryan Thompson. I like a lot of their bullpen guys. But when we look at the rotation, it's not a veteran group that the Phillies is going to be breaking out. You've got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Chris Sanchez for games 2 through 4. Those are some good guys to have on the mound. But this is a Diamondbacks team that can get some big hits once in a while. They're hitting 257 as a team, which is towards the top of the National League. Obviously, Ketel Marte is their superstar. He's having an MVP caliber season. They've got Jake McCarthy, an outfielder who's very good for them. Jock Peterson's been very good for them. And they just picked up Josh Bell. He's got off to a hot start in the absence of Christian Walker, who's their main first baseman. Mike, it's going to be a big series. This is the end of the road trip for the Phillies. They're going to be playing Miami for 2 and then the Nationals for 4 after this. So they get a little bit of a break and all those games will be at home. But really, this was kind of the toughest stretch for the Phillies. I'd even argue almost all season long. You've got the Mariners, who are a borderline postseason team. You have the Dodgers, who are maybe one of the best teams in baseball. You have the Diamondbacks, who have the top wild card spot in the National League right now. But when you're looking at this upcoming kind of end of the season for the Phillies, because we're 70% done at this point, the average team winning percentage that the Phillies will face the rest of the way is .496. So the schedule is going to be getting a little bit easier. They've got 6 games against Miami coming up, 7 against the Nationals. They play the Blue Jays. They play the Cubs, 2 teams that aren't having good years. But then they've also got the Braves for 7 in there, the Mets for 7 in there, the Houston Astros, the Milwaukee Brewers for 3 apiece. So this is going to be, I think, a big series. If the Phillies can win this series, that'd be huge for them. You come back home with a lot more confidence. So I'm excited to watch, Mike.
Yeah, I'm excited for the series. The Arizona Diamondbacks are only 3 games back from the Dodgers. They are playing really much better baseball than they have the whole year. This is going to be a tough series for the Phillies. It's a tough stretch, which I love the adversity. I mean, for the Phillies to really get this adversity check the last couple of weeks, guys, half the lineup's not hitting, It's obviously great to see Castellanos and Schwarber doing well, but like I said, to really hit this stretch, I think was a really good check for the Phillies, especially the dog days of August. To get right coming into September and the playoff months. So it's I'm excited to see the series. I'm excited to see Marte. This guy is quite a player. Watch out for Marte. He can run. He can hit for average. He can hit home runs. I mean,
Yeah.
Carroll was like the best player in their team last year, like one of the best in the National League. I don't know what he hit, 337 or yeah. I mean, he
Something
was
like that. Yeah.
insane. He's only hitting 217. How is this guy hitting 217 the whole year? But you got to watch out for Carroll on the bases. He does when he gets on base, he is stealing and he's a fast runner. So they have some weapons on their team.
Yeah.
And then they're playing well. So it's going to be, a tough series for the Phillies. Hopefully they can at least split the series and come back home and, some home cooking and playing at, Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah. So talking about Citizens Bank Park, I want to wrap up the episode, Mike, by letting our viewers know some exciting events we have coming up. We'll definitely be talking about them more on all of our social medias. But Mike and I and the Believe in Phillies crew are going to be doing 2 live podcasts in the next few weeks. The first one is going to be Friday, August 16th at Citizens Bank Park. We're going to be doing a live Phillies pregame show at the bank. Super excited to be doing that. We're going to be right near the third base gate. So if you happen to be at the game that night, come say hello, listen to what we have to say. We're going to be previewing that night's game and talking about all things Phillies as usual. And then the next day, on Saturday, August 17th, we are doing the Believe in Phillies alumni show, where we're going to be interviewing a lot of Phillies greats, some all-timers, some really exciting people. We're thrilled to be talking to them. So more details to come in the next few weeks, but some exciting things for the show. Hopefully the Phillies are able to roll through Arizona and head back home on a nice cushion, maybe a nice little win streak. We'd love to see that. But from Mike and I, that's all we have for you in episode 25. Mike, thanks again for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
Anytime, James. Looking forward to coming to Philly.